letter.
So we're on the letter S now, and that just means stress, but mostly chronic stress. And the incredible thing about stress is that we actually need it. You need stress. It's good stress, it's bad stress. The thing is that your body doesn't decipher the two. It doesn't know good stress, it doesn't know bad stress. It's just what happens inside of your body. But where does stress come from? So I'm going to get a little sciencey with you, so stay with me. So your kidneys, at the bottom of your kidneys are your adrenal glands, and that's where the stress comes from, or the cortisol is the chemical reaction that happens. So let's talk about the stress that can really help you. So, for example, a couple years ago, I was hiking with a friend. I live in a magical place where we have lots of hills and mountains that we can go hiking on. And we came across a bear and her cub. And we had our dogs with us, and the dogs took after the bear. So she jumped out of the tree and started to charge us. And so obviously, my fight or flight hormone is like, run, right? So cortisol is now surging through my body at the highest levels possible because it's doing its job. It needs to make me faster, it needs to make me stronger, and it needs me to do what it needs to do, right? We've all probably heard that a story of this mom has this phenomenal strength being able to lift a car off of her kid, right? That's cortisol. That's what it's meant to do. So we ran. I'm not sure still if you're supposed to run from a bear or stay put. I wasn't about to stick around and find out. So we ran. And that's when it's really good. But when it's bad, this is where the chronic stress kicks in, is because you wake up in the morning, let's just say it's a Monday morning, and you're dreading having to get out of bed and go to work, deal with the kids, deal with life, deal with coworkers, employers, or whatever it is that you've got going on in the day. That's the stress that kind of trickles on the daily basis. And when you get to your job and you see your employer or your coworker that you've just been, maybe not meshing with, the cortisol is still running through your body, but you don't have the opportunity to go for a run around the block. I can't just drop and do some squats or some push-ups and make use of that cortisol that's trickling into my body on a regular, right? So now what's happening is it's creating things like anxiety, depression, high blood pressure. It becomes what's called a catabolic metabolism, where it starts to eat away at my tissue. And that's where we get sick. And that's what stress is like, the silent killer, right? You've heard of the most heart attacks happen on a Monday morning on the way to work. Well, duh, that's because people hate their life and they don't want to go. So that's what happens with the stress in not such a good way.
Sorry, if I can interrupt for 1 second there. There's an amazing TED talk with this woman. She's brilliant, and she's a psychiatrist, and she was talking about stress. If you think that stress is good for you, okay, in your mind, and that it's helping you, stress in your job and your day to day is something that's helping you get stronger, it's completely different, the reaction on your heart. And the vessels are constricted if you think that stress is bad for you. And if you think stress is good for you, it actually opens up more. Like, as you were saying before, that when you get stressed, when you get adrenaline, cortisol, like you were saying, those chemicals, now they're meant to shut off your thinking. So that's what always is unfortunate when you're in going to say a speech. You get nervous and you're in front of everyone. You get once you get nervous, that cortisol and all that stuff. Now what it does is kicking in fight or flight. So you're not supposed to think. Right. So now you can't remember anything that you're supposed to do. You're just like, oh yeah, you're frozen, and it's not built for this society. It's built to run away from the bear.
So those are the four things that Peter kind of just placed, all of those four things that combined together, the interconnection of all four of those things just undermine our potential of having the best quality of life possible. So what do we do? So now that you can probably talk to anybody and you can pinpoint all four of those things. Do you have stress in your life? Do you have toxicity in your life? Do you have all of these things, right? The answer is most likely yes. So this is where the intermittent nutritional fasting kind of takes place as well, because it just helps your body detoxify and really clean out so we can bring in really good things. Now, before we were talking about deficiency, we were talking about my wellness company, Isogenics, and you're now a part of this. How long have you been in?
A couple of months. Feel great.
Awesome. Yay. Awesome. So intermittent nutritional fasting, nutritionally supported intermittent fasting. So going back to my point of there's so many different ways to fast. There's so many different diets out there. You've heard keto, you've heard carb counting, macros, micros, all of that confusing stuff. So I'm a pretty simple person. Intermittent fasting, really, as soon as you stop eating for 4 hours, your body goes automatically into detoxification. Your body will automatically start to release the chemicals that are stored within our body. And do you know where they're stored? Where toxins are stored? In our fat cells, right? Yeah, so your fat cells hold three things: water, fat, and toxins. So as soon as we stop eating for 4 hours, your body starts to release those into the bloodstream. But what happens is they're just floating around in your bloodstream, and your body still doesn't want to recognize that. It's still dangerous. It's your body's toxic burden. They're floating around your organs and they're danger. So what does your body do? Stuffs it back in a fat cell. So it's just kind of like a hamster wheel. They're not really going anywhere. It's kind of like rearranging the chairs on the Titanic. They don't really go anywhere. They're just in different places. So now we need a source to be able to turn those toxins into a water soluble molecule so that they can be absorbed into the kidneys and the liver and we pee them out. So they got to come out, but how do they come out? So this is where the minerals come into play. So we have this beautiful drink called Cleanse for Life that John Anderson, the formulator of isogenics, has beautifully composed this drink that incorporates all 70 minerals so that your body can uptake those nutrients and release what it doesn't need anymore. So anybody, like I said, anybody can fast for 4 hours, but it's just kind of like being reabsorbed. But when we take in these nutrients every 4 hours, your body now, those chemicals and toxins and pollutants are being stripped apart, turned into a water soluble molecule, absorbed and peed out. And so your brain, let's talk about your brain for a second. Science is that your brain needs 4 grams of carbohydrates every 4 hours. So on average, how we're up probably on average, what, 16 hours a day? Ish, right? So if that's 4 grams of carbohydrates every 16 hours, that's 64 grams of carbohydrates that we need. So if you're following a really, really, really low carbohydrate diet, 20 grams or less, that's kind of based around the keto diet, your body is now in a state of alarm. It needs fuel from somewhere. So the beautiful thing about a nutritionally supported fast is that every 4 hours, we get to take a mineral drink and we take these snacks that are supporting our body at the highest level. Even though we're not eating, we're nourishing our body intermittently for 48 hours, which is why when you do a fast this way, the way that you and I do it, nutritionally supported, not just by, I'm going to pick a 17-hour window and just drink lemon water and not eat. Your body needs that. It needs a carbohydrate source. It needs a source. So here's what makes a 2-day fast really, really important and really cool when we do it our way, is that day one, when your body starts to purge and get rid of toxins and pollutants, your liver is getting rid of the glycogen that's stored within it. So that's day one. And also our fat cells are getting rid of the pollutants that are stored within it and the water. So we do that on day one. What happens on day two is that now that all that is gone from day one, your body needs that fuel source. So it's going to pull from 2 things. It has muscle and it has fat. Well, because we are nourishing our body at the highest level with minerals and carbohydrates and those small snacks, your body says, I'm good. I'm good. I'm not going to touch your muscle, your precious muscle. I'm going to burn fat. And it goes to the fat source and you are in complete fat burn on day 2. Now, for somebody who's not nourishing their body and not getting those little hits of carbohydrates every 4 hours that your brain needs, what's it going to turn to? If you're just doing a water fast, it's going to turn to muscle. It's not going to touch because it needs that hit. It needs the glycogen. It needs all of that stuff. So it's going to start to burn muscle. So somebody who's following a really low carbohydrate diet on a regular basis, they're burning a lot of their precious muscle. And so that's why, muscles are pretty important to me. Strength training is where it's at, man. And it's just like, if you can hold on to your precious muscle and do a 2-day fast every week, you're winning. And you mentioned growth hormone earlier. And you're right, day 1, your growth hormone increases significantly, and on day 2, it almost doubles that. So on day 3 after a fast, that's when I do my heaviest workout. I'm strong. I feel like I could lift the roof off of the gym. I'm so strong. And that's produced internally and naturally. Athletes go to the black market for that stuff, and we get it naturally just by doing a proper fast. It just goes to show that when you nourish your body with minerals, your spark plugs to life, and you do it on a regular basis, everything just recalibrates and it's where it needs to be.
Yeah, no, that's thank you. That's an amazing explanation, and I've seen so many water fastings, huge, huge. So many people water fast, and they do crazy things. 30 days water fasting. What are you talking about? There's like madness, just like okay. But the way you explain it is actually that's the best explanation I've ever heard. Exactly. Yeah. Very, very cool. Of like why? So how do you get that right? If it's not eating, it's got to eat something. It's going to start eating your muscles. Going to start eating your fat. How do you tell it? Our body has like winter mode and summer mode. So you just got to convince it that you're in summer mode. And if it thinks it's in winter mode, it starts storing the fat. And if it's in summer mode, it can burn the fat. So those kind of things, just what you're saying, that's a way to convince your body you're in summer mode. You don't need to store that fat, for the winter, right? You don't need it. Let it go. Because it's all these things. All these things is because the body is trying to protect you. It's your friend. It's trying to be nice. It just doesn't know what what you want, right? So it's saying, it doesn't know. We've adapted. Our society is so much quicker. Our body doesn't know we have, even though they're inefficient, but grocery stores and we can get food whenever we want.
Do you know that obese people are starving to death? Even though it looks like they're not, but they are literally starving to death because our food is so deprived in nutrition. And so there was a study done a few years ago on obese children, and they tested for rickets and scurvy. Like, isn't that a 1920s disease? But that's lack of nutrition. That just goes to show how depleted our food is in nutrition. It's satisfying, sure, but oh, this is a crazy thing. When you walk into an average grocery store, there's 39,500 products on average in
Wow.
your grocery store.
Wow.
Yeah. But 80% of that is genetically engineered to what's called a bliss point. So they've had scientists actually tinker with your food with fats, sugars, and salt to give your brain what's called that bliss factor. So food isn't enough anymore. And we're going to go back to Doritos. Like, I can't just have one Dorito. They've made Doritos so we better get a sponsorship for Doritos for real. They've made Doritos so bloody good, and they've really nailed it with that bliss factor that I can't just eat one. Sondra can't have just one. I turn into literally the Cookie Monster when Doritos are near me because I'll eat the whole bag. Because that's been genetically engineered by scientists, marketing, to make my brain say, this isn't enough. Even though it's way too much, it's horrible for my body. But my brain, it's like that cocaine addiction. Sugar is 8 times more addictive than cocaine. And so they put this in our food to make us more addicted to it. So we eat more, so we buy more, so that commercialism benefits more. The corporate giants benefit from us getting sicker and more unhealthy because we're eating more, but we're getting sicker and sicker, and we're getting more and more nutrient deprived. So what do we do? Like, this is where I come in, and this is where you're going to come in with helping people really understand what they could be doing. It's like, okay, now I know what the problem is. What's the solution? Well, we have to supplement. We can go to a health food store and you can go buy some minerals, which is great. Those are the spark plugs. Those are going to carry the vitamins into your cells so that we're not just buying expensive urine. But in what formulation? So back before I started my nutritional journey, I would go to the health food store literally every week. I was going to the health food store because I'm being a good human. Like, we shop at the health food store because we know it's typically, good stuff, organic and all of this. So what would I buy? I'd buy like maca powder in bulk, and I would buy turmeric in bulk, and I'd buy healthy gummy bears and healthy chips and healthy chocolate. And I would just buy a whole bunch of stuff, stuff, and I would put it in my cupboard. And then I would look at my cupboard and I'd go, now what? So you'd make a shake. You make a typical smoothie and then you put a little bit of maca powder or put some turmeric in there and put this and that and this and that. But to what combination or formulation do you put that in? Do we know actually the scientific formulation where maca powder is at the highest level? What's optimal nutrition? No. So we do these things because we know it's good for us, because we've heard somewhere that it's good for us, right? This stuff is good for us, but we don't know the formulation. And I'm not a scientist and I'm not about to sit down and learn all about it. But when John Anderson, who's the formulator for Isogenics, put these nutrients, and I never call them products because you know what, Andrew? When I hear the word product, I think of shampoo, I think of lotion, I think of other things. I don't think of food. I think of nutrition and nutrients as our food that we put into our body on a daily basis. When we're doing good things to us, it's always nutrients. I never call them products. So when we put these nutrients into our body, John Anderson, who's known as the Mineral Man, he's formulated for multiple companies. He knows that combination and that formulation, and he has a team of scientists that do know those combinations that are going to hit your body at the highest level. So all we have to do is open up a bottle, put that scooper, open up your mouth, put it in, add water, and we've got those perfect combinations. So that's the simplest solution, is when we do the cleanse for life, that mineral powder, it's all in those perfect formulations, which is why people that follow our nutritional system and follow our protocols and the philosophies behind it, that's why we thrive. That's why we do so well. That's why you feel amazing. That's why I've had this amazing health transformation in the last year and a half, is because I followed the protocols on a regular, not some of the time, which is what most people do. They do it some of the time because life gets in the way, excuses get in the way, whatever. They don't do it all the time.
I couldn't agree more. And I mean, as you said, there's certain things that people don't understand, that it's not absorbed. Like if you don't have this, then that you can take tons of protein, but it's just not absorbed. As you said, you very well. My brother was telling me about that, about vitamins. He's like, a lot of people, if you're just taking these vitamins and it's just going right through your system and then out into the washroom. So it's like, why? Because it's not the right thing, the right formula. So I agree to that. And then I remember David joke saying an amazing quote. He goes, when you're working out, he goes, all you have to do is like do the exercise and then just eat well and take the nutrients after, and your body does all the hard stuff of repairing it. Right, you're only doing like the easy stuff. The lifting is the easy stuff. And I always thought that was really funny. That was a great way that he put it. It's a human problem, is that that thing where they did an experiment where they said you can either choose to have donuts and cookies, or you can choose to have carrots and celery. And if it's an event that's like a month away and you have to fill out a form, most people are gonna say, no, I'm gonna choose the healthy one. I'm gonna choose the carrots and the celery, and the healthy choice, and the apple. A certain percentage, maybe like 25%, will choose no, I want the cookies. I'm gonna want the cookies and stuff like that because they know themselves. They're not fooling themselves. And then when the actual event happens, and they've bought an equivalent. So like 75% said that would be the healthy, and 25% say they're going to eat the cookies and that kind of stuff. And it always happens as the opposite. It's 75% will eat the cookies and the donuts and stuff like that. And only 25% will actually, because if you're sitting in the future, you always have this thing in the future, oh, no, I'll be healthy then, or I'm going to do it then. People want the quick thing. They can't hold on to that picture of themselves in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road, and how they'll be. Like you can abuse your body to a certain extent when you're in your teenager, early 20s, and you're just like got this X-Man type factor where you can build up and your body will recover that quickly. But when you start doing these types of abuse to your body, and abuse, like, we're never going to be sponsored by McDonald's, but abuse like McDonald's or Burger King or something, right? That's just abuse. You're abusing your vessel, and we only get one. Like I could go and I can buy another car if my car breaks down, but with this, we don't get another.
Oh, I know. It's like I said, you got to treat it like a newborn baby and just honor it and fill it, for the most part. So you can still do your treats and stuff like that, but you're right. You only get one shot, one kick at the
Only-
can.
Yeah, only one. We have so much other topics, but we're like really running over on time. Okay, so Sandra, is there one thing maybe that you'd like to share with the listener before we go?
One thing, there's 10, but I'll just do one. So I just say to everybody after everything is that life is short, and we really need to be grateful that we're 6 feet above and not 6 feet under, and just don't sweat the small stuff, because really at the end of the day, it's not a big deal. It really isn't.
Mm. Yeah, for sure. They say don't sweat the small stuff, and then it's all small stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
For sure. Amazing. So listen, we will have you back as a guest for sure. There's very soon because there's so many other subjects we wanted to cover and we just don't have time in one session. So that's okay. So with that, I'll wish you a successful and peaceful mind. And thanks again for your time and a wonderful, wonderful day.
Thank you. Amazing. You as well.
Okay. Bye, Sandra.